being diagnosed with cancer is devastating and scary. And then to make the choice to make that a special, because you would have to have made that decision not knowing what the outcome would be.
Yeah.
Because I would imagine, we all have, in our lives, we have loved ones that do, like, did people try to talk you out of it?
I don't recall anyone really trying to talk me out of it, but I do think at that time I think probably people knew that they couldn't talk me out of stuff back then. I'd be more likely they could have talked me out of something now, but I was pretty stubborn when I was in my 20s.
For those who are listening or watching right now that don't know, you had testicular cancer, and it was right in the middle of a successful run on MTV of your series, and then you stopped doing this series and did a special or a documentary or a short from your surgery or from your after your diagnosis to your treatment.
It kind of happened so the show, we moved to New York for MTV. We were in New York for the first, I'm not even sure if it was a year. It was almost a year or something like that. About a year. And then the show was doing great, and we moved to Los Angeles, and the whole crew moved. Like, a lot of people, our staff, not everybody, but 3/4 of the staff, the crew and the camera people and producers, got rid of their apartments. We all moved to LA. We got these cool offices for our show over on Orange Avenue in Hollywood, in this cool old studio place. And we were just beginning to start shooting these shows when I got diagnosed with cancer. So sort of immediately you're told, okay, we're going to have to stop the show. You're going to have to...
Did you think you were going to die?
I definitely thought it was within the realm of possibility. I mean, because I sort of talked about this, where it's I felt like if I'm so unlucky to have gotten this, I probably, going to be not one of the lucky ones that survive it, even though it's a very survivable form. I'm a pessimist, very much so. I'm always going to think of the most, that's not something you say, who says that proudly? I'm a pessimist. So, no, but I often kind of think of the most worst case scenario is generally how I always try to plan my life. Okay, well, that's the worst case scenario, so let's try to avoid that. I'm always assuming the worst. I'm sort of motivated by fear a lot of the time. So, I'm thinking, okay, well...
That's funny that you should say that, because as somebody who doesn't know you well, you seem fearless.
I always kind of think that, okay, well, if this show doesn't work, then, I don't know what the heck I'm going to do with my life, so I have to make it work. And in this case with the cancer, I thought, well, part of it was, okay, our whole crew was there. We had to stop the show, and we'd only been there for a few months. I thought, well, we could do another show about this. It would help people, and kind of kept the show going, because it was the final episode of the Tom Green Show, was the cancer special, and that kept the show going for another couple of months of shooting.
But you didn't know the outcome when you made the decision to let's shoot this and do this.
No. I mean, I did know that it was sort of a highly curable form of cancer. The odds were in my favor that I would survive. So, it is also possible that you don't live from it. So, there was sort of a, I don't know. I think we were just so kind of, it is kind of crazy now that you mention it. That we did
haven't really thought about it before.
That we did that. It is crazy. I'll tell you one thing that came from it, though, that has, been sort of an unexpected sort of positive consequence of this is, testicular cancer affects young guys, and I have had hundreds and hundreds of men come up to my show, at my stand-up shows, who've come up and said, I watched that show just a few weeks ago in it was in Nashville or something like that. A guy came up to me. He was this 45-year-old guy, and he he sort of was very emotional. Like he went to the doctor because of the special when he was in college, and ended up having cancer and was cured, and now he's got a wife and kids, and was sort of like, you
saved
and
his life.
This happens like all the time now. It's weird because it's if anything, that's been the most incredible thing that's happened from that. But at the time, it was it was weird. It was. I will say there was probably a good week where I thought that I was going to try to handle it privately and not let anybody know, because I was sort of embarrassed, about, oh, they're going to remove my testicle. That's kind of, you're 29 years old. That's kind of, at first glance, you're thinking, well, that's kind of an embarrassing thing to have to let everybody know. And so there was a moment there where I thought, well, like, maybe I should just kind of go handle this. But then I was saying, well, maybe that's why we should do it. Maybe it is. I think we also thought, like, well, this could be funny too, right? Like an excuse to talk about balls on TV, and then it seemed very interesting, and obviously.
No, it was amazing. It was also groundbreaking. It's just that I can't fathom. Listen, I'm old, and we all have. Experiences with, if not ourselves, loved ones being diagnosed, and thinking, having had that experience, I can't imagine going, oh, let's shoot this.
Yeah, you know what? The thing that's interesting about it, I haven't really talked about this aspect of it maybe ever, but like it actually made it a lot easier to deal with it, because I was now focused on making the show, and as well as getting through the cancer. But because when you get sick, your whole life stops, or if somebody gets sick, your whole life stops, and everything was important, the show or the thing you're doing, that you're passionate about, all of a sudden all of that stuff becomes meaningless, and it's like, this is just focus on getting through this. And now you're in this sort of new territory where all you have is to focus on is this illness, and your life is completely turned upside down because you're used to worrying about all these other things and doing all these other things. And because of the fact that we kind of kept the show going, I was still able to keep doing what I normally did, and that kind of was a nice distraction, honestly, because it was a terrifying thing to have to go through. And so on one hand, you're sitting there terrified and scared, but on the other hand, you're going like, well, how are we going to make this funny? Well, let's see if Glenn can get down into the operating room and see the testicle afterwards. And you're sort of talking about this stuff, and it's getting your mind off of all the horrible stuff that's going on.
Okay, so you did all that, but then at some point after, I think you were on some show. Did you walk off a show because somebody was talking about it, or?
It's happened a few times, but it's like, that's a weird thing that has happened, I'd say, just generally, which is people like, I think people think it's like, and maybe it is, I don't know, I took it personally for a while when people would come up to me and say, how's your ball doing, man? Like, how's, because I was like still recovering in pain, and people assumed because I did this show. That might be the unintended consequence of doing the show, is people kind of think they can make a joke about how are your nuts, man? How's your nuts, huh? How's your one nut doing? Happens like almost, every day, I don't know, something. And so for the first couple of years, you'd be kind of like, what the fuck, man? Can I swear on this show? I just went through cancer, and you're really still suffering with the emotional aspects of it. And it took me a while to realize that, I think maybe it's something that people don't think about. Like, it's when balls has always been like a joke, you got balls, it's always kind of a gag word, And so when there was a time in the early days when people would kind of make a crack about it, that I would get mad. Yeah. And
was it the Carson Daly Show?
It's happened a lot. I don't think it was him, but it's happened quite a few times. But like just generally on the street and stuff.
But I'm saying you walked off a television show, didn't you?
Maybe. I try not to think about it.
Okay.
Do you think it's maybe
because I realized like I may have at one point, and I realized like I was reacting emotionally, and in hindsight I realized it's a misunderstanding. Like people were trying to be funny and didn't realize that I was kind of going through some
sensitive.
Shit. Yeah.